You know I'm a real hippie at heart, and today's project is a pieced tree, right? This is Tree Hugger. Let's get started. All right, team, let's talk supplies before I get too carried away, right? I am using the wonderful Stonehenge gradient tiles, and the reason I chose this 10 by 10 pre-cut pack, right, is because there's 5 different colors of the greens in there, but there's lots and lots of them, so that I can make lots and lots of squares as I go through, right? I also chose their mottled brown fabric that I absolutely love. This is for the trunk and the branches, and I have about 2.5 yards, and I think I consumed every thread of it in the project behind me. So get 2.5, 3 yards, something like that, okay? Now, I want to focus on building our background of the greens, and before I cut into the fabrics, please drop into that description below. There's a link down there where I've got a printout for you where you can go ahead and kind of follow along in the tree that you see behind me. But my real goal in today's video is to teach you how to be creative and construct as you go. So your tree will be a little bit different than mine. I'm sure of that as well. All right, now let's talk fabric again. With those 10-inch squares, I pulled out each color at a time. I want to keep my colors all together, right? So then I need to divide it down. I'm going to make myself a 10 by 5-inch rectangle to start with. I'm going to want one of those from every square. And then I also am going to need 2 5-inch squares. So I'm also going to cut real quick the 5-inch squares. Then what I did is I went ahead and I came and I started stacking up all of the different colors, and I've got some of this done for us, right? Because I wanted to spend our time on our branches. So that was those colors. And then I stacked up all of my colors as I went. Doesn't even have to be in a gradient order, because now what we're going to do is we're just going to pick 3 different colors for every block we're going to make until all the blocks are gone. And when you get to the end, you might find that some of your fabrics have duplicated. You can go back and just make different choices. So here I am, I'm just grabbing 3 different fabrics, and we're going to construct our block. And like I said, do it for all of your pieces first so you don't end up with any oddball colors left, right? And then we're going to build squares or blocks that look just like that. Now, I construct it quick, but there's a couple of little methods to my madness. First of all, I'm going to piece this together so that I have my straight seams here, and I have my straight seams here on the outside edge. And we'll watch this as we go to the machine. So I'm just laying those down, and I'm making sure that I have the straight edges. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to be trimming these blocks down, so we don't even need to backstitch, really. And because we're going to be trimming them down, we can be a little bit quicker in our work. Watch this. Okay, so I've finished that seam. I'm not even going to go to the iron. I'm just going to take my straight edge over here. I'm going to lay my straight edge and also start up here at this top corner, and I'm just going to piece this down. Just like this. Oh, I should back up at least to get to the beginning of the block. And then as I head towards this seam, where the 2 5-inch squares come together, I just put my finger on it. Just a little bit of a encouragement to let it flop over like that. Come off to the end of my block. And now we're going to go ahead and press this all out flat. Make sure my iron's good and hot down there. And then once it's pressed, I come back and I trim out to square it all up. So we come down in here. We're just going to catch both of those seams at once. And you'll do all 40 of the greens. And I did, and I had a couple that were a little bit more wonky than this, but don't worry. Like I said, we're trimming down to 9-inch squares, but I'm going to use my center seam to trim off 4.5 inches off of either side. So I've got my 4.5 inch mark on the center seam, and I'm just going to slice there. And then the trick is I can use this center seam. It works great, like this. And now I'm also lining up my bottom seam here to make sure my block stays nice and square. And I'm going to trim. This would be a great time to mark your ruler so that you're always only doing 4.5s. You'll notice it's a good time to not look up and talk to the camera, so I don't want to make any mistakes, right? Okay. And literally go through, and that makes a nice crisp, square-looking block with a very fast construction, okay? Once that's done, reminder, it is now 9 inches square. So when we get ready to work off of our yardage, right, what I simply did is I made 9-inch strips, and then I made 9-inch squares so that I could build the rest of the background of the quilt. Now, the layout in this quilt back up here, I believe is like 5 squares by 9 squares or something like that. Excuse me, I've got 9 by 6. I've got notes in front of me. I should pay attention to what I write down, right? So that's 54 total squares if you're as good at math as my young daughter is, right? So 54 squares, I told you you only have 40 of these. So we're gonna have to build together some of the browns to take up some of that extra space. Watch this. So now you see the design wall in place in front of the quilt, right? And I just want to point out, what I did is I took 9 of those brown squares and I stitched them together. Those are always going to be an entire column of brown. That's the main trunk of the tree. Then I also did 3 up the bottom, and on my 4th piece is where I'm going to begin to break the trunk and narrow it into the rest of the trunk, right? But before we can do that, let's talk about the green pieces. Now, if you look at the green pieces, there are often going to be dark and light portions of each block, right? So I try to keep the dark squares up against the trunk as much as possible, and the lighter squares, to represent where the sun would be coming through the leaves better, away from the trunk. So I did actually pay a bit of attention when I was putting in all of my green blocks first. But once they're in place, I did not stitch them together like I did with the brown. I want each one free because we're now going to handle each one individually as we build our branches and our trunk. So I'm going to walk you through the trunk. You've got those 9-inch squares of brown, right? And your scraps could also be important, so please don't throw anything away until your project is bound. Now, what I want to do is I want to start to bring this brown line up to this green line here, right? So one of the things I need to do is I'm going to start by dropping this square on top and just visualizing how can I make this movement. And so I actually do most of my work here by finger pressing to start. And I'm thinking, boy, I want this to come to about here, I'm saying. And so I'm literally finger pressing or finger creasing this. And then I've got a good pinch as I bring it back over to my ironing surface. Once I'm at the ironing board, I will often set it so I don't miss that line. But then what I want to do is I want to fold it back. And I can show you right here on the table with another one of those squares that I can't find. Here's one. So this would then set right on here onto this block, and literally I just top stitch it right down. So in the machine from this point on, I've got a nice matching brown thread, and you can see what I've done here is just what I said. I just top stitched that block right into place there for us. And now I'm going to start building up this column. I work in columns on purpose because I want the squares to be their 9-inch raw squares while I'm working to try to keep my seams coming together as accurately as possible. So that's how I handled the first one. If you look at the original quilt, I'm now going to take this line and bring it up slightly. So I've already done one of those for you too. So you can see the exchange of the trunk getting narrower as we come in here. Now on my quilt, and again, this is just top stitch, but let's point out a couple more things before I get carried away. I handled these different ways. Depending on how much bulk is in the block now that you've added, you can do one of two things. You can trim away the excess, but please make sure you know which part you're trimming away, or you'll get to make another block. You may also do what I did here, which was simply just leave the extra underneath there. It acts like a foundation. A lot of the blocks will be pieced on both sides of the brown, and that foundation is crucial as we go through. Now let's put these back in place so we can continue on our project. Got that there. We've got this here. And now what we want to do is we want to build a branch that comes out of the trunk and starts heading out towards the sky. So let's do this. I'm going to take another one of my brown 9 squares, and I'm going to come over here, and first I'm just going to set it right here on my green patchwork. And then I want this line, and I can go any different direction like I want with this. So let's start taking this line this way. And what I don't normally try to do is figure it all out at once. I just take each actual seam as I go. Now, as I got more proficient with the process, there were times where I wanted to do both seams at once, but I found sometimes things would shift around a little bit in the top stitching, so I'm still anchoring, double checking, and then coming back again. So, here's our block, there it goes. I'm going to remove this from the design wall. I'm going to come over to the sewing machine. Okay, now I can't stitch it down like this, the raw edge will be exposed. So I remember I have to flip it underneath. Okay, just like that. I'm going to set it on here. If you've moved your blocks around, you want to make sure your orientation was how you had it. Ooh, I don't know if I had it with that dark green. I think I had my light green down there. That would make the most sense. So you just double check. You just work as you go. It's really, really fun to do this way. Now I'm lining up all of my outside edges of the squares. That's the reason they're the same size, because it really helps me with my top stitching. Now I'm going to pull that seam guide out of the way. I can just roll it out of the way over here and tighten it down. And top stitching is done with that needle just on the very edge of the foot. Sorry, the very edge of the fabric. I was realizing my chair is now my easel for my design wall. That's okay. Got a quick story then. For those of you who are true fans of the Man Sewing Facebook page and Instagram pages, you will know we were in a skateboard park yesterday afternoon after filming, and now I'm moving a bit like this. So standing and sewing, this is not the best day for that. But we gotta play. We can't just always quilt, right? All right, so check this out. Now, see how beautifully that matches in there? Now what we want to do is, I want a good thickness here, but I want this to start coming skinny out here. So then again, I can just do whatever angle I like. I will encourage you to use different angles so it doesn't look like you're just sticking rectangles down on the quilt. Now, as soon as I show you how to do this, we're going to get that design wall out of the way and talk about our actual quilting. You'll get to see this one more time. Now, as I'm getting ready to roll this in, I'm going to have all of that bulk in there, okay? So, this is another good tip to talk about before I go blasting through this. I've got not only the green, the brown, but I also have the bulk, and I'll have the bulk. So yes, as I became more proficient, went through and just lightly trimmed away the excess here. And I've already set that seam, or that crease, so I can lightly cut away the excess there. But I did find, if I do a real small little 1/4 inch, a lot of times it's harder to fold it back under as I'm pressing it. So I'm giving myself about a 3/8, maybe even a 1/2 inch. Not all of the fabric is underneath there, but there. Coming back around this way, we're gonna go ahead and top stitch this down. Again, that needle's just right on the edge of the brown fabric as it meets the green. Excellent. And then this block will drop right back in here like this. Now, I would normally be tempted to try to carry the branch over here, but I want to build out all of my columns first so that I can secure the columns. Now, once the column is secured, I do want to caution you one last item, okay? What can happen then is this seam allowance, like in here, this block should be reading at 8.5, where this should be 9, right? Because there's the seam allowances in there. And if something like that you're working up and it's a real intricate angle you want to get, well then just go ahead and kind of center the 9 block on the 8.5 block, so you're accounting for the seam allowance you'll be making in your angles, and it works out very nicely. Now, let's get this design wall out of the way. I'm just going to move it here real quick and talk about the rest of the quilt. I won't point out where my branches aren't perfect. I'm sure you can see that from home, right? But what I do want to point out is the variety in thickness and the variety in angles in the branches. I do believe that's key to our design here, right? So they're all looking a little bit different, like a great tree would as you go through. Some of these are real fun down here, these little easy angles there. I like those. Okay, now for the free motion machine quilting, you've got it all put together. It's all basted and ready to go. I started in the brown, and then I did this easy kind of wood grain. It's a real open stippling design. Then I came back in here and I did a real tight leaf design and opened it up into swirls in the bottom with one last accent for my lovely wife. Our initials when we were children, right in the middle of a good tree, because like I said, the name of the quilt is Tree Hugger, a pieced tree for all of you. So I tell you what, I want to know who your first crush was. You can sneak it in the comments below. We'll catch you next time at Man Sewing.